Hello and welcome everybody to a new episode of Gamify Talks. Today I'm excited to bring you a special guest. Her mantra is leave no dollar behind. Liz Kressel is an e-commerce strategist and innovator where she's helping brands launch new revenue streams. Liz is also an early pioneer in the shoppable content space. Liz is currently the managing director of Lizard Strategy. And today we're going to be talking about exciting topics both for existing and new stores, such as how to navigate launching your new store and how to optimize an existing store and what data you should be looking at, as well as touching on the trends in the industry like gamification, loyalty, and live commerce. Hi Liz, how are you?
Oh, great. Nice to be
I
here.
am
Thank you.
super excited to have you on this episode. Thank you for
Yeah.
joining.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. So Liz, can you give us like a quick background about what you've been doing in the e-commerce space, working with different brands,
Sure. So I've been in the e-commerce space a long time, 20 years, and seen a lot of changes over that time, where the market has moved. And it's really exciting to see where it's going. But I started out originally in the media entertainment space, doing both content and commerce, and selling a lot of different things for television networks and big media brands, and moved over to consumer brands almost about 10 years ago, founding my own company and work with so many different types of companies in the space. But everyone's problems are the same. It's increasing average order value. They're thinking about lifetime value, thinking about retention. So I've never focused specifically on one industry. It's really about the targeting. That's important.
yeah,
But I'm loving what I'm seeing in terms of all the new technologies, live commerce, et cetera. And we're
absolutely.
staying ahead of that as well.
Absolutely, and we'll get to that. And would you say like you're working more with kind of new upcoming stores or established brands, or is it a mix? I know that you're doing like a lot of things with different, store sizes. So what would you say?
So I work with all different size companies. I have a number of Fortune 500 companies in our realm, but small stores as well. It's really important for me to keep a pulse on what's happening with the small stores as well. So it's startups, newbies, people who've been out there, a number of years, who are looking to optimize their sites, and then the big brands who are really looking to, level up.
Okay, nice. Let's start with talking about the small stores or people who are interested in kind of getting their online business started. My own observations have been that people get excited at the beginning. They start using a technology like Shopify or another platform that enables them to kind of have a quick store. But then the lifetime of that store, I think this is also an issue that the platforms are suffering from. The lifetime of that store is really short. You see a lot of turnover in the stores, and the churn rate is really high. What do you think? What would you advise people, who are trying to go online and start their online business?
So I think what's most important is a lot of people are just really ready to get their sites up, and they put it up, and there's those templates that they can use. And what they're not thinking about is the customer journey. And it's so important to think about what type of business you are and how do people look or search for things on your site. So, someone may say, I already know what product I'm going to get. They're going to go straight to buy. Other people are going to do research, and other people may say, I need a little bit more social proof. What do your testimonials look like? And you have to make all those journeys easy, but then you have to think specifically about the industry. And I always like to use say you sell art as an example, maybe like, something you put on the wall, something, like what I have back there. And people who look for art are looking for different types of filters. So it might be, what size am I looking for? Can I drill down on size? Can I drill down on orientation? Is it horizontal? Is it vertical? It may be, I want a certain shape. I want a square or rectangle. So you have to think about your customer and how they search before you build your site out. Just throwing products up randomly, I mean, this is, what you're addressing. It's the conversion isn't there. You can sell all the ads in the world, but if your site isn't lined up to ease that customer journey, there's not going to be a lot of conversion.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is the product choice matters, right? Is that kind of the core thing? Is the product choice, or is it? I know the customer journey, but what if my product is not customizable? Let's say, do I look for different products, or do I look for the right audience? What do you say there?
So, I mean, obviously products matter. You have to know that there's a marketplace for that. And I think the one thing I always tell people who are starting, it's not if you build it, they will come. There's other things you have to do to build that audience, right? You're going to have to do advertising. People don't like to hear that, but it's absolutely true. Advertising has to happen. But once you get people to your site, everyone's not ready to purchase. So it's also like cultivating those people who are potential customers, and how do you do that? And that's where I think people don't realize the work that has to go into that. Again, I think everybody wants the passive income of the website, but you have to think about your, what happens on the email side. To me, email is part of your website. I think a lot of time it's treated as a separate entity. To me, it's a 360-degree holistic view of your site, because you need to be constantly nurturing potential customers, your current customers, as well as your VIPs.
Absolutely, absolutely, and different people have different purposes. So some people might already have their own product, but others, just like you said, are looking for this passive income, and they might be like considering drop shipping or different types of ways to get products on a store. So to your point, I think product choice is important, as well as considering the 360 customer journey, and this takes us to maybe customizing and optimizing existing stores. Let's say somebody has a store already with the products, and they know that there is a market for this product or products. How do they go about what to think about when it comes to optimizing their store?
So it goes back again to the customer journey. So if I'm in browse mode, how do I make that journey easy? So if I'm looking and I'm doing product discovery, are there things that create friction for the customer that are in the way? So for example, is my navigation clear? Do people understand? Like, you have to use very simple terms. And I give this example all the time. One of the sites I was looking at had a tab that said grandma apparel. So like, what does that mean? So is grandma apparel for grandmas? Is it about grandmas? It leaves it open to question. So like, you don't want the customer to have to stop and think about, what does this mean before I go there? And you have to think about that product discovery piece. If someone's ready to purchase, then we want to put blinders on that customer, right? They're saying, I'm ready with my credit card. You don't want to start. I see this happen all the time. People are trying to upsell them at that point. It's too late. If someone says, I'm ready to go to checkout, they're telling you they want to purchase. If you distract them in this world where we're already so distracted with, like our phones going off, and like these days with the FedEx guy coming because now everybody's working from home, like that's not going to work. So like you have to think about that. And then on the VIP side, what does that look like? How are they treated differently? So I think it's super important to look at treating all of those customers differently and making sure all of those pathways are clear and easy, and you reduce the friction. So like when people ask me, yes, it's navigation, but it's also like looking at your product pages. Is there confusion there? I'll give another perfect example of something being sold out. A lot of times small stores will say, and because Shopify has this thing of notify me by email, right? Which is wonderful, and you should enable that. Everyone absolutely should enable that. However, the caveat is, if you are not restocking this item, do not have that up there. So that makes sense if you do think like it's going to capture lost sales. But if you believe you're never going to do it, so now I'm disappointed by you because you say you're going to let me know when it comes and it never comes. So you have to think about everything that the consumer touches in each of those pathways. So if I'm purchasing and you tell me it's out, you have to know that. You have to know how the customer is going to react.
Yep, I would definitely agree with that, and even maybe to another level of telling the customer, if I know the customer already, if I know that this customer has purchased previously a T-shirt that is, let's say, large, and then I only have small, maybe that is one of the main things that I highlight for the customer before they actually spend time and add the product to cart, and then they're surprised you don't have my size. So that maybe kind of personalization could contribute to a better conversion rate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think absolutely people want to know beforehand before they're starting to click in that their size isn't available. And a lot of times people can do filters on, hey, everything that's large in a shirt. I mean, that's another thing to think about. It depends on what you're selling. Certainly, apparel, it's much more important there. But I think the
Mm-hmm.
other thing that you touched on that I love, so like personalization has moved past like now that we can do such advanced things with segmentation. It used to be you had to gather like a huge list before you can target them differently. But now, if I know that someone, purchased, say a piece of luggage, right? I
Mm-hmm.
can say everyone who purchased luggage, and maybe it's only 30 people or 100 people. But now I can say, hey, do you want these luggage tags that go with it? And, and target them afterwards. I can also, if they put something in their cart, I can upsell them there on something that's a companion piece. So I think, to me, where it makes sense is like really thinking about the customer, and because you're going to have something different in your cart than I'm going to have in my cart, right? Like you may pick a certain shirt on a site and you're going to want to pair it with a certain pair of pants, but maybe I'm looking at something entirely different. But we know that certainly on apparel, I do think people, I mean, we can get more into this too. I think one of the biggest mistakes that sites make is the you may also like widgets, where people are recommending items. And
Mm-hmm.
what they'll do is they'll say, oh, you like that red shirt? Here are some other red shirts. But really, that's
Mm-hmm.
not how people buy apparel, right? People want to put together outfits. So it makes more sense to show me outfits, but it shouldn't be anytime I see a shirt, I see this pair of jewelry, this pair of shoes, whatever. It should really be so custom. And I think people rely on the algorithms too much,
So
and they
much,
really,
so much,
yeah, oh
yes,
my God. It's
yeah.
terrible, but I understand it because the small businesses want to see about doing an upsell in particular, but I see the
Mm-hmm.
large companies do it as well. It makes sense. You have to do this custom curation. It's manual. So it's like you
Mm-hmm.
use the algorithm, but you have to create categories. So like this blouse goes with this pants, this hunting jacket goes with this knife, this, whatever it is, these running shoes go with these, those balls you put in so your shoes don't smell. My point is you have to think about what else might that customer purchase, and how would they think about what would be those companion pieces. But
Right.
again, if you and I are on the site, our basket should not look the same. The upsell should not look the same.
Absolutely. So look, this is kind of a deeper level of understanding what's going on the storefront. Um, but if we are to take a step back and think about the basics of data, what data points, what analytics should any store owner or anybody running an e-commerce store be looking for? My experience with the existing platforms is that they don't provide enough data to the store owner. They provide them with the high level kind of sales metrics, but there's a lot more to be looking at.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I've seen small businesses miss out is they don't actually look at their cost of goods sold
Mm-hmm.
with regard to the product. So they're looking at the straight revenue from the site. So I think that's a piece they're missing. I
Mm-hmm.
think, to your point earlier about what products, they're not looking at product mix correctly, about what's selling, what's not selling. I mean, there may be something selling, but what are the margins on it? So people aren't looking at the margins. I feel the one missed opportunity really though is the purchase pattern behavior. So there's sales data, but people aren't looking at, if someone bought X, what was the companion Y? And then thinking about, marketing that to folks. So like either in an upsell, either in an email, either in promoting on the site that they know that when, these two pieces are presented together, or these two items are presented together, that they'll get a higher average order value. So I feel like there isn't enough breakdown of the data. I think people are looking at, okay, this mug sold really well, or this particular service sold really well, but are there ones that are companion that you can start to think about marketing outside of that? Because again, I think everyone would love to have this very passive, income coming from these websites. And in some cases you can, if it's something very commoditized, or fewer SKUs or something like that. But if you really want to nurture that audience, like you have to think, again, more holistically about, what is it, the right product mix for the audience I'm targeting? Maybe I'm attracting a different audience. Do I need to shift my marketing because of that? Because a certain product is selling and you didn't intend that. So
yep, absolutely. So this, I mean, we've been talking about it, but this also highlights the importance of personalization in e-commerce. And, what I'm hearing is basically, regardless of your size, if you're not having personalization on your store, you're less likely to be selling. So do you think that is the case? Actually, like any store owner, regardless of when they started, the size of their store, they should be looking at personalization?
Absolutely. And personalization has gone way beyond like saying, dear Liz, or Liz, hey, we have promotions today. That is not what personalization is. I mean, that's table stakes. You should be doing that regardless when you can. Yeah. I think personalization is about thinking, what is the onboarding process? Asking your customers, what are they interested in? Particularly like you're a sporting goods store and, maybe there's certain sports you're interested in. You're into, soccer, football, depending where you are, basketball, and maybe running, and you're not interested in other stuff in the store. Like, I would want to know that, because when I'm sending you emails or promotions or whatever I want to do outreach to you, I already know that you have a certain interest level, and therefore my conversion is likely to be higher versus sending that customer random promotion. To me, there's a personalization piece there, and then there's the personalization on, I know you bought X, now I can sell you Y, because that's a companion piece. So it's throughout the whole process. And I think anyone can do this. I think the data is there even for anyone who's a newbie. Like, you have enough of that data in your Shopify and your Wix and your Woo, like whatever you're using, it's that data is there.
You can do Excel sheets to start with, and then you can move to a more sophisticated kind of CRM and personalization tools. This is all great. What about your take on customer loyalty and engagement? A lot of stores now have those customer loyalty programs, and they're trying to engage their customers more and find different ways to engage their customers. What is your take on that?
I think it's super important. I think, but the loyalty can be done different ways, because you have to think about what type of product it is. And for example, if you purchase a fridge, say you bought an appliance, or you purchase a piece of luggage, like an expensive piece of luggage, you're not about to buy another one right away, right? Because that's a large purchase. It's not something you need all the time. So that customer loyalty is going to look very different than someone else who's maybe buying apparel and it's seasonal, etc. So, and the point is, so what do you do for someone, it's a big expensive purchase, you need to make that customer feel good about it, right? They have to feel good about their purchase. So you have to think about other ways to convey that, to get them to be loyal to you. And part of it is, showing the value in what they purchase, like maybe different ways to use that item, tips, tricks, things like that, showing other people. I can give you an example of one we had done for a brand. So for Eagle Creek, we had thought about, okay, people have bought these really expensive travel, backpack type of bags, to travel with, and they're not buying another one. But if you can come up with an email, for example, that focuses on, maybe there's so many travelers out there who've taken these bags to amazing places. So the story is about the customer, with the star being the bag. You're not overtly selling, but you're making someone feel good about their purchase, because they're like, wow, look at this. This went to, Kilimanjaro, and this bag is durable enough to do that. I feel really good about my purchase. So when the time comes to buy another one, they're thinking about you, or someone else is talking about making the same type of trip, you're very willing to recommend it. So I think like the loyalty is a little bit different. Like on the customer engagement, there's so many new things you can do now. And from a loyalty perspective, and this is where, we touched on live commerce for a second. This is where live commerce is really, really useful from an engagement standpoint. So it's not QVC, it's not HSN. I know people are thinking, oh, it's commerce with a commerce overlay, right? Like the lower third, it's like, here's this mug, and then, mug $30. We're not talking about that. The difference today is it's really about programming. Like think of entertainment programming. What are you watching? So, if you focus on home decor, you can show how to arrange pillows on a couch, how to reorganize a room. There are things you can do. I mean, that's from a service perspective. There's so many people who can showcase their skills if you're a service-based business versus a product-based business. But it's also, for clothing, you can do fashion shows. For beauty, you can do, tutorials. But you have to think about what that programming is. And there's a lot of different platforms you can do it on now. And it all depends on what's the look and feel and the level of engagement you want from your customers. But I think, when you think about the VIPs, they do need to be treated differently. These are your customers. Probably, 80% of your business is coming from 20% of your customers. And you should reward those people. And maybe it's something they get to experience, something experiential. Like maybe we talked about, a runway show or something that they get to see and nobody else gets to see that. I do believe they need to be treated differently because they're your evangelists. Ultimately, if they love your brand, they're going to be on social media talking about your brand, whether they're an influencer or not, they're going to be talking about it with their friends. And those people need to be rewarded for those actions. I mean, they're like,
this is super interesting. This is super. This is super interesting. It's it's bringing to my mind the question about who's this for. It seems like from a high level, this is for established brands or somebody who has the time to wait on return. You know what I mean? Do you think this is for everybody, or how would you view this?
Everyone. I think people are a little daunted by it, but there's so many third-party apps that are plug and play that you can do it. I mean, you could do the QVC HSN model, test it out, see what works from a
Can you explain it to the audience? Can you explain it to people who are listening to us now?
Well, yeah. So there are, with live commerce, you could either do it on Facebook Live, you could do TikTok, you could do Instagram. Actually, YouTube is the biggest live stream platform right now. But people who want a little bit of a different look and feel are using some third-party apps. So I think of like Lisa or Bamboozer or Common Sold are some of the ones out there that are doing that. But if you want a higher end production value, then I start to look at companies like Stage 10. The beauty of this, so I know people are like, what? I don't know. This sounds really crazy. You don't need a television studio. We could have it set up. It's no different in a lot of ways than a webinar or going on a Zoom call. You can do this. And now there's all these wonderful dashboards that you can start here, put several products in, and then they'll appear on screen. These are drag and drop, people. It's very easy to do. Most of these you can set up in about 30 minutes. It is not hard to do. Part of it is playing and figuring out what content resonates with your audience. That's probably where the bigger challenge is, but anyone can do this. Nice. I think what's really great is most of the people who are getting into it at this point, are the smaller people, and they're doing really, really well. And if anyone sells,
interesting.
Wow. Yeah, they are. And I was going to say, if anyone sells like a luxury good, there was a really interesting stat that I read yesterday that in terms of people who have watched live streams, 70% of them have bought a luxury item. Wow. That's really high. And generally you can get, in terms of conversion, a 15% bump, but most people are seeing like 100, 200, 300% bumps in terms of conversion. Because remember too, you can you can display an item. You can really talk about all the features and benefits, the history, whatever you want to tell people, because it's beyond just what's on the product page, right? And they're purchasing in frame. So it used to be you're watching something you want to purchase. Now you were taking to a different place. You're not leaving the video or whatever you're watching, right?
Yeah.
Now it's actually happening in frame. So this is like the technology has finally caught up to where the consumer behavior is.
Yeah, it's an interesting technology that is, advancing every day. And it's actually generating even more data on the consumer behavior that I'm sure, maybe in the near future, we'll start seeing more personalization based on, which live shows have you been watching, which ones did you stick to, which ones did you leave, and all of that. I think this is kind of like, to your point, the future of e-commerce is live commerce.
Yeah, particularly because so much of it is happening on the social platforms. You see what's happening in China. So this year in the US, we're supposed to hit, or by 2023, we're supposed to hit 25 billion. And then China, last year, closed 300 billion. So there is so much opportunity. I mean, the US is quite a bit behind China with regard to that. But it's because of the social commerce. Social commerce picked up a lot faster there than it did here.
Absolutely. I know Latin America is still kind of very early in the space. They're playing around with it, but there is potential globally for this trend. I think this trend is here to stay, as opposed to other things that people have tried out in the e-commerce space. But live commerce is something that is growing day by day.
Yeah, and it's very, very attractive to millennials and Gen Z because there's a shop attainment sort of element to it, and they do tons and tons of research first. So for them, it's all about product discovery, and they need to do a lot of work on product discovery first before they're going to look to purchase. So because of that, combining with entertainment and sort of some gamification elements, because people are like, hey, if you attend this, maybe you could win stuff. You have to be there, you have to be present. There are gamification elements to it as well that you can throw in. There's so much there for them, and of course they're going to tune into personalities that they like, and you see a lot of the influencers had started doing it, but it's really think of those people, they're solopreneurs. So any small business can do this as well. It's you don't have to have 10 million followers. You just need to have people who are a loyal following. If that's 100 people, that's fine.
So this is your advice, small business owners, you have to be doing this now. You have to invest some time and money. It is time. You shouldn't do this when it's a bit late for you and you're trying to catch up with competition. I think you should start immediately. Part of the gamification that you just mentioned about the live commerce, what I would like to see is not only about, okay, you have to be present to get a reward, but maybe the interaction between the presenter and the audience to have a bit of, more engagement, more gamification. You're earning your control over the what is being presented. Maybe try this t-shirt on, or bring us another product to see, or talk about this topic, just to have more control, or even, let's say, interaction between the presenter and the audience. Because for me, there's no point if you're just showing up trying to sell live and you're not interacting with your audience and you're just talking about your products.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. That's the QVC HSN model, but that attract a very specific audience. So now you do have to interact with your people, and some of the platforms are really amazing in terms of the dashboards they have. You can bring audience members up. So if they're on camera, you can all of a sudden, bring them up front and center to talk about things, like in the same way people are seeing you and I next to one another now. I can bring up someone from the audience that way, and it looks like we're in a television studio. That is what's so cool about this now, as well as you're regularly interacting with people. People will tell you, this can also be great for companies in terms of product research. Hey, we're looking at rolling out this new line. What do you like better? Okay, give us likes if you like the blue dress, or do you like the red dress, or whatever the case. There's a lot of interaction you can have with the audience about it, about where would you use this? There's so much that can be done. But again, it's not all about the selling. It's like, what is the entertainment value? So if it's food related, is it recipes? Is it, you
Yep.
have to think about what is that customer going to take away, because it's not all about sales, particularly with the younger generations. There's a give and there's a get, right? So it's like the get has to be greater than the give. If they're going to attend this for you, you have to give them something away that makes it worthwhile. It's the same for email. Like, you can't just ask for their email. You have to say, hey, you're getting tips and tricks to do XYZ. Here's how to do your makeup. Here's workout tips or something like that. So they're like, oh, okay, yes, I want that. I'll give you my email. It's the same thing on these live platforms. It's not all about selling. This is not a live,
It's not about selling.
email.
This
It's
is
not
the
what it
point.
is. Right?
Yes.
It's content. People have to think about it as true content, and with commerce is the kicker, right?
Yep.
It's
Absolutely.
content first with a commerce overlay. You're thinking about how to think of it's like product placement, if you will.
Yep. Amazing. Well, awesome insights from you, Liz, today. I appreciate all the insights and the information you've given us today. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. This was great.